Good, good. I feel like I'm feeling the effects of the lost hour today, though. It's cutting my weekend short.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Well, great to have you. Thanks for coming on.
Sure thing.
All right, awesome. So let's get right to it. I just actually turned on my Twitch stream, and podcast itself will be uploaded either later today or tomorrow.
Sounds good. How's my audio video quality?
Oh, perfect,
Okay.
perfect. Hello, everyone. This is Premier Chess CEO, National Master Evan Rabin, and I am very excited to be here on the 140th edition of the Premier Chess podcast with a very special guest, Alisa Melekhina, who is one of the top female chess players in the country. She is also a litigator and actually, a couple years back, published the book Reality Check, which actually provides some great insights into both her career as a chess player and an attorney, and sort of how those two worlds kind of came together. So Alisa, great to have you on. Is there anything else about yourself that you think is worth mentioning before we begin conversation?
Yeah. Hi, Evan. Good to see you again, and thanks for having me on your show. Very happy to be here. It's a great time for chess, so I'm happy to be on, in the middle of this chess boom. You pretty much covered the gamut of my background. Chess has always been a big part of my life, and currently my full-time day job is as a corporate litigation attorney at a big law firm in New York City, but chess still plays a big role. And I would add that the other big aspect of my life is dance. I've been classically trained in ballet, and I always say that chess is discipline of the mind, whereas ballet is discipline of the body.
Mm, interesting. And I did know actually that you were very into ballet, growing up, and probably still do a little bit. Um, how would you say like dancing and chess have sort of compared and contrasted to one another?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, I grew up doing both very seriously, actually, even though my chess career took off and my dancing is not even near the same level, but I still keep up with it. So it's something I both started to learn when I was around 5 or 6. And chess instills a very rigorous discipline of your thought process. And in chess, you always have to be aware of where your mind is wandering and what your next move is, and the next few steps. And ballet is very similar with the body, because you have to be always aware of what your limbs are doing at any given moment, making sure that you're ready to go into the next move and the next step. So that's from the discipline aspect, and of course, just from the physical perspective as well. Being in top shape in chess is very important, and that's not observed as much or acknowledged as much. That to be a chess player, you have to have a lot of stamina and be in top physical shape. I heard that the top chess players hire personal physical trainers and nutritionists, and that completely makes sense to me. So I think it's very important, if you're pursuing something very seriously, such as chess, that takes a big mental toll and drain on you. It's very important to have physical activity, sport, dance, something on the side to complement.
Um, yeah, and I think it's super cool. Obviously both arts and sciences. My friend Ray Martinez, says that he tells his students to control the center, like dancing on the center of the stage, which could be sort of interesting. I think just being able to continue to be flexible and go from one part of the board or the stage to another. So um, one, Elisa, the first thing I really wanted to ask you about was just your upbringing. As a chess player, you definitely had a lot of success very early on, and it's definitely I wouldn't say like a rarity. We've had other, obviously, as you know, top women chess players on the podcast, like Susan Polgar and Jen Shahadi. But it's definitely, unfortunately, at least not yet the norm. So could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing as a chess player and how you think being a female chess player might have had some impact?
Yeah, sure thing. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of top female chess players and role models, and I'm standing on the shoulders of giants compared to the Polgar sisters and compared to Jen Shahadi. And everyone has a different story and a different journey with chess. So I'll just speak to mine. As I mentioned, I was taught chess at a very young age, around 5 or 6. My dad taught me how to play. I then competed in my first chess tournament, which back then, of course, were all over the board. One of the big open Swiss is the World Open in my
Mm.
hometown of Philadelphia. So it was also helpful that was a big chess scene, at least in terms of there being access to tournaments in Philadelphia that I could go to and attend. And I just took to the game very naturally. And I think that's very important because to keep in mind, I do get a lot of questions from parents in terms of, how do I get my child to stick with chess? How do I get my child into chess? And my perspective has always been that you can't really force, a child to take on something that they're not naturally inclined to do. I think if you introduce a child to chess, it becomes very clear very early on if they are naturally curious about the game and if they want to continue. And I would say that's the biggest sign or the biggest predictor of success in terms of the future, in terms of them sticking with the game throughout the high school level, where we know that many kids, especially young girls, tend to drop out and start to focus on other pursuits. So for me, I just kept on winning and pushing forward. I really enjoyed the game. You touched on the aesthetic aspects of the game. That there is a beauty to chess. I was very drawn to it as well as the competitive aspects. So I kept going. I kept qualifying for international, national events. And those types of metrics, that type of reward system where you input a certain amount of work and then you get some recognition or some output, I think is also very helpful and definitely drove me to keep on going. And I do thank the US chess scene for providing those opportunities at the scholastic level and supporting their young and female chess players. And then before I knew it, it just became such an ingrained part of my life and my identity in a way that I kept going with it.
Yeah, and I think you raised some important ideas there. I mean, one, obviously you shouldn't throw chess down a kid's throat, right? It should be because the kid actually wants it, and you'll see fairly early on. And I see that, of course, a lot with chess parents. They think, oh, I'm a master, so my kid should be the same. But that, of course, is not necessarily the truth, and and I think I would say in particular with women, they do have distractions, and as you certainly know, during middle school and high school is where the gender gap starts to, um, I would say, rise substantially. In most scholastic programs, it's actually, relatively, I would say, equal between boys and girls. But then in middle and high school, that's when it definitely drops off. We have one program at the Yeshiva of Flatbush, for instance, where we have 20 students. One of them is a female. And actually, I give that one female like a lot of credit each week. I'm just like, oh my God, like, bring some friends, but at the same time, like, it's super, super cool that like you're not letting like the stereotype like stop you from coming, each week. I could easily see you just being like, wow, there's like a bunch of dudes here. I'm not coming back. But what do you think could be done to get girls to like continue playing in middle school and high school and beyond?
Yeah, and you touched on a lot there, and just let me first mention because you mentioned distractions, and so I don't think there's any distraction specific to girls as opposed to boys, but it's maybe the response to them. And in terms of what girls choose to do with their time, I think like girls tend to be more pragmatic, and so if they're faced with decisions of should I continue spending all my hours on chess or focusing on physical activities or applying to college, I think they'll take the more pragmatic approach. And that's why you see that a lot of the top female chess players are they're multi-talented and they're successful in other fields. So I co-founded the New York City Corporate Chess League, and despite chess being very heavily male dominated, interestingly, in the New York City Corporate Chess League, we're seeing such a strong participation from female chess players. The co-founders of the league were all women, and half the captains on the teams, and these teams are banks from across the city, top names, gold star institutions. Half the captains are women, and there's a lot of female participation, at least compared to the other spheres. So we're seeing women taking what they can from chess and applying it to other fields as well. And it just takes a lot to be a professional player these days, a big time commitment, for anyone, for male, female. And I have so much respect for anyone who does that as a full-time career. But you also touched on another issue, which is lack of participation from other girls and lack of role models. And so you might have a situation where a young girl, she'll feel intimidated if she's just one of 20 or 30 boys in the class, or she doesn't feel included. She doesn't feel as comfortable analyzing with the other guys or feel that she's part of the guys. So in order to help that, it's very important to have more female role models, more female coaches, more female players looking up that they can look up to, just more representation from women who have done other things with chess, to say that even if chess is not your full-time career goal, that's okay, but here are the benefits that chess can offer you in academics and the career going forward, and try to appeal to women and girls that way.
Got it. Got it. And what would you say? So you have a substantial, legal career. You're working, at one of the biggest, firms in the city, um, and doing corporate litigation. As we actually do classes at Kramer 11, one of the other top law firms, in the city, where we teach ideas like judgment training and critical thinking and other aspects of law, sort of through the game. But how would you say, in particular, your chess skills have actually helped you as an attorney?
Uh, yeah, sure thing. There's a lot of overlap between the strategy that you would derive from chess and the strategy you would apply in any other process-oriented field, such as law, especially in litigation. It largely depends on process, the litigation process. Litigations tend to be very drawn out. It's not like it appears on TV where, the entire case might be resolved in a week or in a few episodes, and then everything happens immediately. There's surprise witnesses, surprise evidence. Some cases they can last over 2 years. And so all of those steps along the way, they uh, depend on iterative steps and process. And just like in chess, where you have to calculate ahead and think about what your adversary is up to and how your adversary will respond to you, just very similarly in litigation, you have to chart out your strategy to take into account what they're planning and be prepared to handle that. So that's definitely one aspect of it. We can talk about, the critical thinking and the analytical skills and how you apply patterns in chess. Similarly, in law, you would apply patterns, to, for example, in doing legal research or in generating work product and using templates and going off there and thinking about how prior precedent can help you in your current case, but of course, not using the exact template one-to-one, but thinking about how it adapts to the situation at hand. So chess very much teaches you how to adapt to new situations using the tools that you have at your disposal, using as many resources as possible. And similarly in litigation, that resourcefulness and um, working within the confines of a defined system, but going towards a new goal, those two go hand in hand.
Hmm. Yeah, I think adaptability is huge. When things don't exactly go, as expected, you want to make sure that you're, making the most of the situation. And that could be actually when things go better than expected, or worse. I was going over a game this morning with a student, and, he sort of made the sort of typical developing move, not exactly realizing that his opponent actually did something that was a little bit inferior that he could have actually tried to take advantage of. So yeah, when things are not going as planned, you want to try to take a step back and try to figure out how you could basically keep a deep breath and just figure out what sort of the rules of the game are, and how you could best move accordingly. So um, how would you say, so like, yeah, one of the main challenges, I would say, young adult chess players like you and I actually have, is just being able to balance our growing in chess, and not only a career, but definitely a very very busy career, working at a top law firm, right? So what, how would you say you've balanced your legal career and actually, like, continued playing tournaments and starting this corporate league and everything else? How have you sort of balanced your time?
Sure, balance is very important, and that's probably the top question I get nowadays is how are you balancing, having a career and then playing chess competitively? And I think that question starts from maybe the wrong premise because it assumes that you might not have enough time for everything and that you have to choose how to allocate your time. And over the years, I've come to appreciate that if you want to make time for something, you will make time for something. So if people say, oh, I just don't have time for it, that to me sounds like more of an excuse. But there's ways in which you can integrate it, and that just goes back to the planning and the process point. Even here, from an external perspective of how do I plan, my life around these things, and how do I make sure that everything fits. For example, you can carve out time to study, let's say, not nowadays, but during your commute or if you're waiting for something, especially nowadays, everything is on the phone. You can play some practice games, you can look up videos, you can bring a book, a chess book, and fit in ways to study there and carve out, maybe a few hours during the week, and that'll be good enough for you to keep up with chess and not be as rusty. And then, just keeping a schedule if you want to play in a tournament, clear out your schedule in advance, make sure that you plan around it. And you can do it. You can use your vacation days. If it's a weekend event, maybe you'll just have to make sure you're free on that Friday evening so you don't get swamped with work right before you have to leave and go out the door. But there are ways to do it. And I would say the more difficult aspect is taking a step back and figuring out, do I really want to pursue this and what role will this play in my life going forward? Because, well, once you start going into a different career trajectory or you become subsumed by that different world, and maybe chess takes on less of a priority, and so you don't feel as motivated. So for me, the biggest challenge was not even balancing, it was just keeping up the motivation. If I'm motivated, then I'll find a way to keep up with it, I'll find pockets of time. But for me, I always go back to the same question of motivation and why should I devote my time to this instead of this.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think a lot of it actually is, I was telling this to someone earlier today. A lot of it actually is just the, importance of, true desire. Most of the time, I would say people say they don't want to do things because they're busy. It's not necessarily true. It's do they really want to do it, right? Because we're all busy. If you really want to make time for something, you'll, both professionally and personally, you'll definitely, make it work, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, I guess speaking of which, I wanted to transition a little bit and talk about the corporate league that you started, I think, together with Alexandra Wiener, from Goldman Sachs. Um, that was definitely something that I was very excited to see. And actually, since then, there's been corporate chess championships. FIDE, as you know, just had their first world corporate championships. And I think, yeah, all this work is great actually to bring more, corporate sponsors, into chess. So could you tell me about, starting the league and how that kind of came about?
Yeah, definitely. And thank you also, Evan, for the work that you do in the corporate chess scene. And it's definitely an unexplored aspect of the chess world. And when my colleagues, my friends, and I came up with the idea a few years ago, that was what we were starting with because by that point we had all started at big firms, banks, institutions across the city. The first year of the chess league, in addition to my friend Alexandra Wiener at Goldman, we also had Jan Ling, top Canadian women chess player who at the time was at Blackstone in New York City. And so all of us came together and said, well, we know a lot of chess players at these companies. A lot of these people, they say that they like chess and they like to play chess, but why isn't there a forum for us to come together and play chess? Because a lot of these employees at the companies, these executives, are not going to spend time going to tournaments and they're not going to invest the whole weekend, especially since a lot of them have their own families. Weekend time is very precious. So playing in a big chess tournament is a huge time commitment. But at the same time, they don't want to play just online bullet and blitz. So how can we get these worlds to come together? And then the idea of a corporate chess league was the obvious next step.
Mm.
So that was our starting point. And then we even had it just initial bases to draw from. At my law firm, I knew of several chess players who would love the idea of joining a team in the league and competing there. And likewise, they knew as well. And we also had other friends across the city who were in similar positions. Once we pitched the idea, they were immediately all in. So beyond that point, it was just about getting buy-in to host the league. It was about getting buy-in to the schedule, but and I tell this to people who are planning corporate chess league events because I think they're still coming at it from the perspective of here's our model for chess tournaments, and let's use this model and invite corporate employees, corporate teams to this chess model. And that's the wrong premise. The way that we came about it was here's the model of corporate galas, corporate networking events, and how do we fit chess into this mold? And I think that's why the league was so successful because we knew what would draw people out and how chess would be a part of that rather than vice versa.
Hmm. And what would you say is the biggest benefit that chess could, actually bring to a company in terms of either, putting classes together or, putting a team together in one of these leagues?
Sure. Well, there's a huge team building aspect to it. And that's why a lot of the players, they love the league because it doesn't really matter what level of seniority you are, where you are in the hierarchy. You come to the league and you play your game over the board and that's it. And this is one of the few places where we can go through that veil of the hierarchies and the seniority and everyone just comes together and everyone has a good time and connects over chess.
Mm.
And that's a big draw, in chess as general. And we're talking about women in chess. When I was a young girl playing chess, I didn't even think of gender dynamics because all I had was the board in front of me. And, I could be a 10-year-old girl conversing with adults about positions or beating adults. And everyone was just on a level playing field. So I'd say that's one aspect is just the corporate, the cultural team building aspect of it. Even doing these chess leagues, I've met people at the firm that I would never otherwise have come across, either because they're in different departments or we would never work together. And we have this commonality, and it has enhanced everyone's experience. Um, and it's just a healthy pursuit. I think it's accessible to everyone. And traditionally, you hear, uh, I'm not saying at my firm, but just in general, you hear like Wall Street types or like boys clubs or golfings, or things that are traditionally more male dominated and are a bit exclusive, whereas I see chess as very inclusive.
Mm. Yeah, well, I really like what you said about everyone coming together. And part of why I actually started, um, the idea of even promoting corporate classes is I remembered my days at Oracle, and some of my closest friends from Oracle are not people that were on my team. Of course, I still talk to some of them as well, but Truly, the ones that I talk to like the most now, years later, were ones that I met through like Toastmasters, a public speaking club that really did actually, by far, increase my confidence to speak and host a podcast like this, for instance. So, but yeah, it was a great way to meet different lines of business. I was actually on a call 2 weeks ago with one of my other podcast guests, Jerry Nash, and a guy, Dylan Glad, who actually worked with Insperity, a big HR consulting firm. And Dylan actually was talking about, this one time where he like just randomly left a chess set in the office, just partially curious as to like who would, basically like make a move, and it ended up being one of the janitors there. It kind of surprised him a little bit. As a matter of fact, they would basically make one move at a time, and he didn't even know who he was playing. And then one day he happened to notice that it was him making the move, and it just it taught him how chess was also an equalizer, and how I mean anyone could be a master, or at least a good player in the game. Um, so so you like some others, but not many others. Did write a book about chess. Um, well, about chess and business and law, I should say. Actually, reality check. There was some games in there and some analysis in there, but it really was about sort of the parallels of your career in the game. And I really do think that there should be more books about chess and business. Bruce Pandolfini wrote one, who's also been on my podcast, and Jim Egerton wrote one, um, about chess and business itself. But could you tell us a little bit about your book, Reality Check, and how that came about?
Yep, absolutely. So the book is a reality check what the ancient game of chess can teach you about modern competitive settings. So you described it as a book about chess and business or law, and those are definitely major themes of it. But I would describe the premise of the book as, the competitive mindset itself, and chess is one exemplar of that. And that mindset surfaces in other endeavors, like in business as well. But the point of the book was it was a big self-reflection for me in terms of how I got to where I am, how chess played a role in that journey, and what lessons I can abstract from that journey, and have it applied elsewhere. So the book goes through, you know, we were talking about motivation. It goes through, the motivations of a competitor and what is the mindset of the ultimate competitor. And then once you agree with yourself in a way to go on the journey and you accept this journey, and then how that mindset can help you in other aspects of your life. So there's a big psychological component to it. There's a big strategic component to it where I go over some of the substance of the strategy we were talking about: critical thinking, analytical thinking, planning ahead, being purposeful. Those are very key chess centric components, and then also the psychological aspects of what could be holding you back in your day to day, such as cognitive biases, or emotional responses. And chess really does teach you to be calm and composed, to plan ahead. And there's a lot that we can learn from there so that you can be successful in any other field that involves competitive dynamics, not just business and not just gaming, but these are present everywhere. So it definitely had some autobiographical components to it, a lot of philosophical components to it. I was a philosophy major in undergrad, and have retained a part of that in my day-to-day thinking, and this was a great outlet to explore that, since I don't get to draw on those experiences anymore. So the book has something for everyone too, and for those more chess inclined, there is an appendix in the back with some of my highlights of games and lessons I can take from those from a chess perspective. But it's also for people who don't necessarily know how to play chess at a high level, but they can appreciate the concepts and ideas of chess.
Yeah, well, I remember, I was actually at one of your, posts publishing events, Chess in the Schools, that actually our recent podcast guest, um, the president of Chess in the Schools, Debbie, actually hosted. And yeah, it was great. You were talking, about all different, you know, lessons that chess players and non-chess players alike, could learn through the game. Of course, we do actually, some lessons for all ages and skill levels, and it's important to, yeah, host different opportunities. Which, by the way, I did want to mention too. I don't know if you saw or not yet, but we're actually with the Columbia Club hosting the All Ivy Invitational tournament on the 23rd. We're actually going to have live analysis from Grandmaster Mark Paragua and a special Q&A with Bruce Pandolfini, who of course was recently an advisor on Queen's Gambit. So could you talk a little bit about like Ivy Chess and how are you Penn alum? Could you talk about like chess during college and in the Ivy schools?
Yep, sure. I'm a Penn alum because I went to Penn Law School, graduated in 2014 before I started working. And I did play in one of the Ivy events. It was hosted at Columbia uh, at the time. And I'm very glad to hear the strides it's making because at the time, I don't even think we had any type of live commentary or any type of emphasis on that. So it's great to see that chess is being elevated in all of these different aspects of it. And in fact, my experiences playing, at the collegiate level is what inspired the corporate chess league in a sense,
Mm.
because it's really the same idea. Similarly, uh, playing at that collegiate or university level, I was part of a team with students I would never normally interact with just because they were in different schools, they were in different departments, and yet we had a common goal and it enhanced our experience. And then interestingly, those same students, that are at the colleges and not even necessarily at Ivy League schools, but just at other local colleges now end up going into the workforce and keeping up those friendships has been very rewarding, and also it is what um, inspired the chess league. And now my friends are now at companies, and now they're playing on teams there. So I just think that in general, that's a very important takeaway from chess is that once you forge those friendships, those are lifelong friendships. It's people always say it's very difficult to make friends as an adult, but I would say chess it creates such a bonding experience, and you can really converse with someone. You can get an insight into what they're thinking, and they can see how you're thinking, and you can connect and work towards a common goal. And that's just a great way to make friendships and maintain friendships. And then, even now, if I walk into a tournament hall, I could see someone that maybe I played with years ago or someone familiar from the chess scene, and we could instantly start talking as if no time has passed.
Hmm. Yeah, and definitely. I mean, chess community is huge. You and I have been, playing tournaments and actually knowing each other. Um, you know, since we were both teenagers, right? And obviously had lots of mutual friends, and it's yeah great, especially like a bigger tournament like the Amateur Team East. You just see like hundreds of people that you've met over the years.
Yeah, it's a
It's
big community,
actually
but it also feels very, very small, like you mentioned. I think like even if you just spend a few months or a year in the chess community, you could know everyone within the tournaments that you're playing.
yeah. I was actually just telling that to a student this morning. He was like, "Oh, I was playing this tournament the other day, and I played against one of my friends." And I was like, "Yeah, well, guess what? You're gonna get to a point where literally every single game you're playing against a friend, in a couple of years. So, once he starts, playing more and more, tournaments and, meeting everyone. So, anyway, I really want to thank you for, coming on here, having a great conversation about, really a variety of subjects, from the, relationship with chess and dance and, the development of, a player to the ability to make good decisions, both in chess and law, to the founding of the corporate league, to team building, of course your book, reality check, um, and competitive chess. Both in the business front and in the Ivy Leagues. Do you have anything else you'd like to cover while you're on the podcast?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, you mentioned we covered a lot of topics, and that's because chess is very multi-dimensional, and chess has a lot to offer in very different aspects. So yeah, I'd just like to close on the note that I'm very excited about this new chess boom we're experiencing now, thanks to Queen's Gambit, thanks to increased online play. And I hope to see chess going up, and as more people get interested in the game and stay in the game, I'm sure we'll see chess become more diversified, and there will be even more topics to cover later on.
Definitely, and Queen's Gambit is huge, of course, and I will say you're one of the women who do actually personify Queen's Gambit a little bit, in real life, and I really do look forward to seeing your progress, as a chess player, as an organizer, of course, in your legal career. If you'd like, if anyone would want to reach you, learn more about the league or any of the projects you're working on, is there a way people could reach you?
Yep, you can visit my website, alisamelekhina.com, and then there's a lot of information there. There is contact email addresses. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on all of that. But yeah, the website is definitely the best way to reach me for anything.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Alisa. Enjoy the rest of your precious time of the weekend, and look forward to speaking soon.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you, Evan. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.